Hello and welcome back, and do you know what? I think we can all agree modern technology is bloody amazing. I think it's a well-trodden path at this point that now, with incredibly powerful devices in the market that are wafer thin, it is phenomenal for those that work portably, that work on the go, whether it's the commute on the way to the office or just something to do in the back of the car. Right now, mobile technology has never been better. However, as small as these devices get, the number of ports they afford gets fewer and fewer, and very few brands have done a bigger, badder job than this than Mac with their MacBook Pro series. And for the better part of 6 months, I've been kind of utilising a Mac for a lot more of my processes as I travel around the world a lot more. And one of the things that that's led me to is a realisation that a number of you almost certainly have already had, and that is, you've got to get a docking station. And when you're on the go, Mac has removed everything but USB-C, and therefore docking stations with every iteration of MacBook, of what they're up to right now, M4 Pro, Wizard level, Elite, docking stations have become more and more needed. And with every video that I've made discussing docking stations and hubs, of which I've done quite a lot, suddenly I'm viewing them with a very different eye. Now, up until recently, these two were my go-to docking stations. Recently, I'm saying about mid-2025, and these kind of did the job for most of what I needed. They rocked out with USB-A at 5 gig and 10 gig. They rocked out with SD card slots there to eject my DJI camera there, a network port there when I needed it, HDMI when I was in the hotel and wanted to stream direct, USB-C power pass-through to keep things charged, and in the case of this one, VGA, which you will be amazed that has actually saved my bacon a couple of times with some old servers. And prior to that, I had this really old one that was just covered in USB, and this one was about 20 nicker. However, the way that docking stations have evolved to imbibe a lot of different devices in a home or business environment is incredible. And in this video, I'm going to tell you the 4 best docking stations I've ever used. Now, that is a bold statement. I'm only going to limit it to devices that are currently available right now in one form or another. And none of these 4, by the way, is inherently better than any other per se. These are just the 4 best docking stations I use in different case scenarios on my travels, when I'm at expos, when I'm working here in the studio, or working from home on the sofa. So let's crack on with number 1. This is the Acasis TBU405 Pro. This docking station I've had for about a year and a half, and this saved my bacon during IFA 2025 in Berlin. Now, why is that? Because this docking station has a couple of little nifty features. Now, let's get the obvious stuff out of the way. It's got USB 10 gig connectivity there. It's got, on the other side there, a 100 watt power delivery that was powering my Windows laptop at the time, but now powering my Mac when I need it. HDMI output there when I needed an additional screen. And on the other side there, individual USB-C inputs there for Thunderbolt 4 and USB 4 that not only allow for connectivity with your host client device relationship, but on top of that, an additional outlet there as well. Now, what makes this stand out? Well, it has 2 M.2 NVMe. This was powered via a single USB 4 port there. You can supply additional power if you choose via USB power input there, although the adapter is included with this. I've never felt the need to use it. And rocking around at about $150 to $170, this fan-assisted docking station is genuinely pocket-sized. It has the active fan there, right delivering cooling on top of both the M.2 NVMe's and the internal PCBs with rubberized feet as well. Indeed, the fan has its own physical on switch there. Not only powers the fan on, but also scales through 2 different RPM modes there. Again, $150 to $170 for this docking station allows me to add a whole host of connectivity to this. Now, is it perfect? No. I'm really hoping Acasis are going to work on an upgrade to this as they start rolling out Thunderbolt 5 and USB 4 V2 devices. I'd like to see a Thunderbolt 5 80 gig version of this. I would also like to see it factoring in an RJ45, because that was the one thing that was missing. Now, I was able to take advantage, there it is, of a USB to 5 gig adapter that I was able to connect to this, and this was $30, that allowed me to add network connectivity, but still nonetheless, with Thunderbolt 4 connectivity there and 20 gigabits of performance there, either at Gen 3x2 or Gen 4x1 for each of the M.2s inside, this is still a phenomenal adapter, and at that price point, fair play, this is a great little hub. Next up is a hub you may have heard me talk about a lot on the channel. And if you haven't heard me talk about it on the channel, chances are you may have seen me working near an expo or a coffee shop, Pret Worthing again, high praise to you. You may have seen me working with this drive connected to the back of my Mac. This is the Sharge Disk Pro. Now there are two variations of this. This is the original. This arrives with either a 1 or 2 or even 4 TB drive pre-installed inside. Don't worry, there is a version without that. We'll get onto that in a sec, with active cooling, a pre-attached copper USB cable there that allows you to just connect it on the go. Metal backplane with individual MagLink panels as well for your connected devices to get those attached on. It also arrived with 10 gig USB. It also arrives with 100 watt power delivery, with 80 watt being delivered to the connected device to keep that charged, again, like a MacBook, like a Windows laptop, and another 20 watt to be distributed across the other ports there. So again, a USB 2, a USB 3, and that HDMI output there at 4K 60 frames, all add up to a phenomenal docking station that has active cooling, a ton of ventilation and heatsink for the drive inside there, as well as a fan that you can control in its RPM or just powering it down completely. Again, put it into perspective, if you thought that Acasis one was small, this is how small the Sharge Disk Pro is by comparison. Now, I said there was another version of this. There's actually technically two versions, in a light and fully fledged Disk Pro 2 version that's currently going through crowdfunding on Kickstarter. We've done a review of it. There'll be a link to it below. And you can pick that up for as low as $59 right now. It doesn't have the storage, but it has an empty M.2 NVMe slot. That version also has the cable being completely detachable, because some users didn't like the connected cable. And the the Disk Pro 2 version also arrives with dual SD card slots on the rear as well. So regardless of which one of those two you go for, and regardless of whether you plan on connecting it to a MacBook, connecting it to a Windows laptop, or connecting it to the back of your phone with that magnetic connection, you've got a lot of options there on what you can do with. And as mobile hubs go, I know this is blurring the lines between the docking station and the hub, but fair play, this thing delivers. Now, circling back to that point about the difference between a hub and a docking station, traditionally a hub was considered a purely mobile device that you utilised on the go, whereas a docking station was generally, as the name sort of suggests, something that was static, and you connected your portable device to it to turn it into a powerful workstation. Now, the lines there have blurred significantly. I've already shown you a couple of devices there that I would argue actually add a great deal of static scale out on a portable device. Now, this one is from Lequo. This is from Lequo, also known as IOCREST. This is their 10 gig USB 4 connected USB and SD card storage hub. This, I would argue, it's portable, sure, but this really does blur the line between a hub and a docking station. So again, as mentioned, taking advantage of USB 4 connectivity, otherwise known as Thunderbolt 4 as well, but with better flexibility on the lane distribution. It arrives with a full fat 10 gig network port there that is connected via a Gen 4 x 1 lane to an AQC113 controller on board there. So again, full saturation potential easy. But because of USB 4 giving up to 40 gigabits of connectivity, that leaves a lot of bandwidth on the table. There's plenty of USB 4 to 10 gig network adapters in the market, but you're only using, theoretically, about 1/4 of the potential bandwidth. And that is where a device like this comes in, with 3 10 gig USB ports and arriving with dual SD card connectivity there for offloading your recordings. This is a real easy bus power device. Now, it doesn't have the fan control. It's got a fan inside, but it doesn't have fan control as standard. Also, on top of that, it doesn't really have much in the way of HDMI output or anything like that. But this is a truly portable 10 gig ready hub. There are other 10 gig networking hubs in the market, but they cost way more than the $100 to $110 that Lequo are commanding for this device. And it's a device that has seen me in good stead when I've had to go to off-site jobs where I need to connect to a 10 gig network easily while simultaneously needing to connect a bunch of other devices at once. But in 2026, we can't talk about this blurry line between hubs and docking stations without talking about what I believe to be the cream of the crop. A docking station that arrives at $199 and, I would argue, challenges some of the biggest players in the market when it comes to docking stations that expand out what your Mac can do, but also maintains an element of portability, and that is the Mate Pro from Beelink, otherwise known as the Mate Pro, arriving at $199. I find this thing staggeringly capable. Now, the reason I'm giving this so much attention over the other docks and hubs that I've talked about is I just don't understand how it commands this price tag. It arrives with a carry case. It arrives with all the cables you're going to need. And these are high quality cables at that, the proper threaded nylon cables. Now, the one downside I'm going to mention early doors is it does need mains power. This is one of the only docks I'm talking about today that will require mains power. So portability is going to be very relative to the plane you are on, the hotel room you are working from, or the media center you are setting up in, he says modestly. But in this device, in this tiny package here, and again, let's get perspective, there is the Lequo device we mentioned earlier on in terms of scale. This device arrives with 4 M.2 NVMe slots. It arrives with HDMI out. It arrives with 2.5 gig networking output. It arrives with 96 watts of power pass-through to power the device it's connected to. The M.2 NVMe's inside are distributed at Gen 4 × 1 each, allowing for around 1.5 to 1.6 gigabytes per second transmission. In most cases, you'd be like, well, I'm not going to get to enjoy that. In this, you will. This is USB 4 V2, an 80 gigabyte per second connection, otherwise known as Thunderbolt 5. Again, if you have a MacBook M4 Pro and above from 2025 or later, you're laughing. Now, this also arrives with a rear speaker and a microphone built into the top. It also arrives with Bluetooth and Wi-Fi 6. It is bonkers how much they have fit inside this tiny package. At $199, yes, it is not as portable as the devices we've talked about so far, but it's not portable either. This thing stays in my suitcase when I go far. Later this year, I'm going to be heading over to the US and Canada and Japan later this year for a couple of trade shows, and this is going to be in my bag, because when I get back to the hotel room, when I get back with my recordings and I set up and I'm good to go, this tiny little box will connect me to everything, my backups, the network, my comms, everything, via a single 80 gig cable there. And at $199, you just can't argue. So there you go. These are the best docking stations that I've used so far of 2026 at least. And I've recommended all of these in their own individual videos below. So if you want to learn more about them, see their thermal testing, their performance testing and more, I've done that for all of these devices and you can check that out below alongside links to get hold of any of these for yourself. Now, if you found the video helpful and you're going to buy these devices, please use the links in the description to do so. It won't cost you any extra, but that's me and Eddie here at NAS Compares, it's just us, get a small commission on any purchase you make, and it allows us to keep doing what we do. So play ball and use those links, and don't just use it for this video, but other creators as well. But thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.